Hey, welcome back to the Art to Income podcast with Doug DeAngelis and Musicians Council expert Michael Elsner. We kind of ended off our last bit talking about, the human part of all this. And I wanted to talk now about the phenomenon of sort of right brain, left brain. And I think most people are kind of excel at one or the other. And I think, to really grow a business around music, all by yourself particularly, really both play a huge role. So first of all, what comes easier to you? Is the right brain the creative side or the left brain the more analytical side?
Oh, I have some very strong opinions about this. Honestly, I think it's a decision because I went through a phase in my 20s and in my 30s where I was just so creative, and it was, I don't know what side of the brain it is, but whatever the side the creative brain is,
Right side.
I played that game of like, oh, I'm just a creative person, and oh yeah, I know I forgot to pay my bills for the last month. That's why the electric got turned off. But I don't pay attention to that because I'm always so focused on, and as I've gotten older, and then of course, as I really got into the real world of actually, okay, if I'm going to make this work and I'm going to actually do something right, I need to pay attention to the business side. The conclusion that I've come to is I'm definitely split right down the middle. And I believe it's completely a decision. When I want to be creative, I put on the creative brain. I focus on the creative side. I turn off the other stuff like the phones and stuff like that. I turn off my mail program. I turn off the other garbage that can take you out of that creative space. And I focus on being creative. And I enjoy that part of the process. And, the emails will be there. The phone calls will be there. The text messages will be there when you're done to return them, right? But then at the same point, if I actually want to take that work that I've put into it and monetize it so that I can continue paying my mortgage and my car payments or whatever other stuff I have to pay, I have to be focused on the business side. And the conclusion that I've come to is that if you can drive a vehicle down the highway at 70 miles an hour, right, a 2-ton vehicle, and your brain can do all the calculations of the cars in front of you, behind you, next to you, their proximity, how fast do you have to step on the brake so you don't smash into the car in front of you, all that kind of stuff while paying attention so you don't slam on it too fast if the car behind you slams into you. If your brain can make those calculations, meaning if you can drive a car, you can run a business. Because it's not hard. It's just a matter of focusing on it and making it a point to focus on the business side. And that's simply understanding the basics of the business that you're in. There's a phrase that says, know the game that you're in, right? If you're going to play a game of football, you're not going to show up at the field with a baseball and a mitt, right? You're playing football. Well, if you're in the music industry, you have to know the game that you're in. And the very basics of the music industry is publishing. That's how you're going to get paid. Understanding the actual rights of the intellectual property that you're creating. There are plenty of books out there, and you only have to read 1 or 2 of them to get a good, solid idea of how the intellectual property works, how you get paid, how the rights exchange from one entity to another, how as a songwriter you always retain the songwriting rights to the song, and the actual role of what the publisher does and how they control the copyright. These are basics of the music industry. And if you're a songwriter or a creative individual in the music industry, if you want to make a living in it, you have to know the game that you're playing.
I completely agree with you. I also know from my conversations with you that you are a wickedly analytical person. You are amazing at being creative, but also weaving, constantly sort of analyzing and thinking. You're very thoughtful. And I guess what I'm interested in is, how do you find yourself while you're just being creative, writing music? Obviously you've written a lot of music in your life. We'll come to that in a minute, just sort of catalog building and all that part of it. But when you're just being creative, when you're writing music, don't you find the left side of your brain kind of analyzing the situation and going, if I just did this, this would fit really well in the kind of scene where, there
Yeah.
was this type of, it was in this era and this type of,
Yeah.
character was doing those are analytical thoughts that stuck
Absolutely.
into the process.
Yeah. I'm very visual. I've always been visual. I've always, like if I lay down in bed and I think of something, I visualize my way through something. And that's definitely been a big part of the creative process for me. If I'm writing a song, and if I'm sitting here, let's say like I've got a songwriter sitting on the couch behind me, and we're writing a song, as we're building the track out and as we're coming up with lyrics and melody, I start envisioning what types of what scenes could this song be good for. The energy of the song, the mood of the song, it makes that very clear to me. If we're doing like an upbeat, real driving track, well, that's not going to be a romantic moment in a show. That could be during like a chase scene. It could be during like a moment of high drama, right? And then as I start seeing that scene, or what I'm starting to envision the feel of that scene, that's going to start dictating the next steps in the process. It might dictate some of the lyrics that are said,
Sure.
So absolutely, I do analyze that aspect of it. But at the same point, my brain just never stops. If I go out for a walk, and I'm taking a break from being creative or whatever, and I'm going out for a walk, my brain just doesn't stop. So I start thinking of, a big thing for me is, how can I monetize the time that I put into my music? It comes back to a word that I really try and focus on extensively, and that's purpose. So I'm going to take the time. If I'm going to take 2 or 3 hours, I'm going to sit in my studio and I'm going to create a piece of music. There has to be a purpose to it. There has to be an outcome for it. And while I might not know what that is while I'm writing that track, when that track is done, I definitely focus heavily on that. And I focus heavily on that by, really locking in my metadata. I usually have 3 outlets that I know the song will go towards. It's going to go towards one of them. It's either going to go towards commercial, it's going to go towards trailers of some kind, or it's going to go towards just normal TV placements. Those are my 3 outlets.
Mm-hmm.
So you think of them as like 3 buckets. And as I'm starting a track, it becomes pretty clear within a fairly short amount of time which bucket that track is going to fall into.
Right. So that analytical process is going on. You are actually starting to create a roadmap for licensing opportunities for the piece of music you're working on. But, I just do want to kind of spell out for people that doesn't mean it's not a creative process.
No, not at all.
It's a maturity thing when you've been doing this for a long time, and you begin to just be able to hear music and visualize it to things. Yeah. And that's actually, interestingly, that's a parallel between very good music supervisors and very good writers for television and film, is that ability to just hear a song and go, God, that would be brilliant for this if I ever get a scene like that, Yeah. And you started constantly logging things in your head going, oh, one day when I see that scene, I'm going to remember this.
See, I don't have the attitude of, if I ever get a scene like that. My attitude is always like, there's so much opportunity. So this track that I just wrote is going to get a scene like that. Now, it might not get a scene in the show that I'm thinking of or exactly as I'm envisioning it. But what I do is that's the creative process. I have a 4-step process. That's the first part of the process. Steps 2 and 3, that's where the value is added so that I actually do get that placement. And, visualizing where the song's going is the same thing, living in Nashville, writing with a lot of songwriters here in town. You'll be a verse and a chorus into a song, and they'll be like, this is perfect for so-and-so. This is like a perfect Brett Eldridge song. Right. So even as songwriters, they're still seeing that outlet. This would be perfect for Carrie Underwood, Okay, awesome. And I feel that also still steers them as they continue writing the rest of the song. I don't think they ever look back and go, wow, now that song is done, I think that's a great Faith Hill song. I think as they're writing that, this would be perfect for Faith. Oh, let's just, she had a song like this, so this is what she likes to do melody-wise. So what if we try that?
Yeah. So you've always been kind of a wealth of information on all this stuff, and it's obvious, talking to you. And I think, you know, people are probably constantly trying to tap you for that information.
Mhm.
I know you recently sort of took a step in creating an online course to
I
mitigate
did.
some of that.
Yeah.
Just tell the audience a little bit about that course and where they can find it,
Sure.
and how they can learn more about the, you know, all of your background and expertise on how to,
Sure.
you know, get placements.
You know, the origin of it is just really simple. You know, when I came back to Nashville, a lot of people were asking me. I spoke at a conference or two when I came back, and word got out pretty quickly that I had done a lot of licenses. You know, and that's the thing right now. You know, everyone wants to get their songs placed on TV shows, and so I just got. I mean, literally, it was like, gosh, a couple times a week, people sending me texts or emails, people who I didn't know, publishers, artists, you know, record label, people who worked at record labels, even people at the different PROs, you know, wanting to get together and buy me a cup of coffee and pick my brain. And I did that for a little while. You know, it's been 3 or 4 hours talking with someone for a $3 cup of coffee. And it just got to the point where it was throwing a lot of my own business off. You know, I'm happy to meet and share this with people, but it was counterproductive. So I really had to figure out, how can I share this, but not take, you know, 3 hours or 4 hours out of my day all the time, you know, for a chai tea, really.
Right.
So I took some time and I wrote a little book. It's a 17-page book called The 4-Step Plan to Licensing Success. And I basically just recorded really a conversation that I had one time. And this is that conversation. These are the 4 steps that every song that I write goes through. And it's the 4 steps that add an incredible amount of value to the end users. And you know, we talk about music supervisors a lot, but I also make a big point on music editors, right? Music editors are also very key to getting placements, and they've been very key for me at least. And so I focus on all those people. I just call them your end users. How can you provide them with an extreme amount of value that makes their job and their life as easy as possible? And these are just the 4 steps I've gone through, and it's the process that I've used for, you know, 15 years now. And then so when I released the book, I just released it free as a PDF. You know, I sent it out to people when they asked me, you know, to pick my brain. I'd say, hey, here, check this out, and if you have any questions, then we can get together afterwards. And then that did really well, and I realized that after that, people wanted more. And it was a friend of mine who was in a session with me one day, who, his name is Bill O'Hanlon, and Bill, we just stopped the session at one point, and he really dove into convincing me to create a course. And so I created a course called Master Music Licensing, and it is the roadmap. It's every step along the way. There's a lot of screen capture. We dive into Pro Tools. We dive into spreadsheets for metadata. We dive into an online platform called SoundMiner. I take you through every process, every detailed part of the 4-step process. There's 33 videos in the core course, and then I'm constantly adding to it. So there's a total, I think right now, of 44 videos in the course. But it's not necessarily the quantity of videos, it's that it's so detailed and highly detailed of every part of the process to get your music licensed.
That is awesome that you put that together as a resource for people. And, you know, I'm just so happy we have you as part of Musicians Council. You know, I want to make sure our audience understands. You can come onto Musicians Council and you can book one-on-one session with Michael, and you can actually talk personally about your world and your experiences. And it's very different to any other learning resource when you can actually talk about your own world with an expert rather than just reading or listening to a podcast like this about theirs. So that's really why we created Musicians Council. And you've just, you know, the resources you've put together already on your own are amazing. I'm glad to have you with us to give some personal things like this for people.
Thank you.
Let's come back. I want to talk to you next about trailers. It's a very different world of music, and it's exciting, and it's something I think people will love to learn more about because they probably never even thought about it before. So let's take a break, and we'll come back.
All right.